The African savannah is not a kingdom. No lion lounges on a golden throne, sipping zebra-flavored wine, while minions fan him with palm leaves. No, it's more like a crime-ridden medieval battlefield where every king is one bad day away from being evicted violently. Unlike human monarchs, who can sit on their thrones eating grapes until they die of cholesterol, a lion's rule is dictated by one simple law. You either conquer or you die. At the heart of this chaos is the Lion Coalition, the muscle, the mafia, the violent brotherhoods that run the savannah's underground world. While most people imagine lions as noble kings, the reality is that they rule more like warlords. A male lion doesn't inherit his throne. He fights for it. He earns it by clawing, biting, and chasing away any fool who dares to challenge him. But here's the catch. Ruling is exhausting. Holding on to power is like running a dictatorship while everyone, including your own body, is plotting to overthrow you. The moment a lion ascends to power, his days are already numbered. He must constantly mark territory, patrol his land like an overworked security guard, and chase away hungry rivals. He must defend his pride from rogue males, vagrants who have spent years in exile, nursing grudges and hitting the lion gym, ready to launch a coup. And if he's lucky enough to sire cubs, well, congratulations. He's now babysitting a pile of fragile future heirs who are walking targets for every power-hungry lion on the block. But before we get to the bloody takeovers and betrayals, let's rewind to where it all begins. Every Lion King starts as an outcast. Young males, once they hit puberty, are kicked out of their birth prides faster than an unemployed son who refuses to move out of his parents' basement. Lionesses don't tolerate grown males loitering around the pride, eating food and contributing nothing but awkward family drama. So they chase them off, forcing them into exile. And exile is no five-star adventure. It's a brutal, miserable existence where survival depends on sheer willpower. These young nomads, usually brothers or childhood friends, form tight-knit coalitions because without a gang, they're just hyena food. They roam the savannah, living like hobos, stealing scraps, dodging dominant males, and dreaming of one day becoming the ones who do the bullying. As they grow, they sharpen their skills, building muscle, learning ambush tactics, and whispering motivational speeches to each other at night. One day, bro. One day, we'll take it all. Then, one fateful day, they see him, the king who has grown weak. A lion's prime lasts about 4 to 5 years at best. After that, it's all downhill. His once mighty roar, a little hoarse. His muscles, not as firm. His tail, missing chunks from too many battles. He's gone from unstoppable warlord to tired dad with back problems. And this is when the nomadic assassins strike. A coalition of 3, 4, sometimes even 5 young males will storm his territory like a gang of teenage delinquents who just discovered energy drinks. They come in hot, roaring, chest-puffing, tails flicking, a full-scale invasion. The old king tries to put up a fight, but deep down he knows the truth. His legs are slower. His reflexes aren't what they used to be. He's been dodging death for years, but today his luck runs out. The fight is brutal. Teeth sink into flesh, claws rip fur, bones crack. The king fights like a cornered gladiator, but the young males overwhelm him. The battle ends one of 2 ways, banishment or death. If he's lucky, he'll escape, running for his life into the wilderness, a battered, humiliated relic of his former self. If he's unlucky, the coalition rips him apart, making sure he never comes back for revenge. And just like that, the kingdom has new rulers. But the horror isn't over yet. The moment the new kings take over, they execute a move so ruthless, even the mafia would flinch. They slaughter all the cubs, every last one. Why? Because they aren't his blood. Lionesses only mate with the dominant male. And if he's been in power for a while, all the cubs in the pride are his. If a new coalition takes over, those cubs are now genetic dead ends. They hold no value to the new rulers. Worse, they are delays to their own breeding plans. Lionesses won't go into heat while they're nursing cubs, which means if the new kings want to pass on their genes, they have to clear the nursery first. And so the massacre begins. The lionesses fight, of course. They snarl, claw, and try to protect their young. But they are no match for multiple bloodthirsty males. The new kings rampage through the pride, crushing, biting, and ending every cub they find. It's horrifying. It's heartbreaking. It's nature. But here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes, the lionesses have a plan. Lionesses aren't stupid. They've seen these takeovers before. Some will hide their cubs, sneaking them away during the coup, waiting for the dust to settle. Others will fake submission, pretending to accept the new rulers while secretly plotting their revenge. And the best trick of all, the delayed mating trap. Some lionesses stall mating for as long as possible, making the males wait and wait, knowing full well that time is their enemy. Because here's the ultimate irony of lion kingship. If a male doesn't produce cubs quickly, his reign will be short-lived. Another, younger, stronger coalition will come knocking sooner than he expects. And so the cycle continues. The fallen kings don't always die immediately. Some wander alone for months or years, ghosts of their former selves. They live off scraps, dodge predators, and sleep with one eye open. Some try to form alliances with other exiled males, hoping for one last shot at revenge. A few succeed, returning to reclaim their thrones in dramatic fashion. But most simply fade away. They limp into the unknown, their roars now whispers, their mighty reign reduced to a footnote in the endless, never-ending war for the throne. And somewhere in the distance, a new coalition of young males is already sharpening their claws, waiting for their chance to rewrite history. Because in the Lion Kingdom, the throne is never safe. If lions had a secret society, it would be something between a highly trained special forces unit and a gang of professional bank robbers. Forget the idea of brute force brawlers clumsily chasing down prey. Lions are strategic masterminds of the ambush. They don't just run at a herd of antelope like a bunch of hungry idiots. They plot, coordinate, and execute precision attacks that make human military tactics look like child's play. If war generals took notes from lions, we'd have a lot fewer failed battle plans. But here's the real kicker. It's not the males running the show. Oh no. Despite their glorious manes and Instagram model looks, male lions are mostly security guards and occasional enforcers. The real brains behind every hunt, the lionesses. They are the covert operatives of the savannah, the deadly assassins in the grass, the ones who make sure the pride doesn't starve. And trust me, when they move in for the kill, it's a perfectly choreographed dance of death. Imagine this. A herd of zebras is peacefully munching on grass, living their best herbivore lives, blissfully unaware that a team of highly trained lion assassins is creeping toward them inch by inch. Lions don't charge right away, that would be dumb. Instead, they engage in stealth mode, using every bit of cover available. Grass, bushes, termite mounds, even the natural curvature of the land. The trick is patience. Lions don't get spotted because they know how to freeze in place when a prey animal lifts its head. If a zebra senses something suspicious and looks up, the lions immediately become statues, blending seamlessly with the landscape. No blinking, no tail flicking, just a bunch of furry rocks waiting for the right moment to move again. It's like the world's deadliest game of red light, green light, except losing means you go to bed hungry. What's even crazier is that lions can calculate wind direction to avoid being smelled. That's right. These cats are literally checking the weather conditions before launching an attack. If the wind is blowing toward the prey, the lions know they need to reposition. Otherwise, they'll be sniffed out before they even get close. If only humans put this much effort into planning their diets, obesity wouldn't be a thing. Now that the lionesses are close enough, the real magic begins, the classic lion pincer movement. At this point, the team splits up, creating a deadly triangle around their target. One lioness, usually the most experienced, stays hidden and acts as a decoy. Her job? To pretend she's the only threat. She'll make small, subtle movements to keep the herd's attention on her while the others silently reposition. Meanwhile, the flanking lionesses circle wide, positioning themselves behind escape routes. Prey animals, despite having incredible senses, are incredibly dumb when it comes to traps. If they see a predator, they assume running in the opposite direction is the safest bet. What they don't realize is that this is exactly what the lions want. The setup is brutal but brilliant. The prey either runs straight into a waiting lioness or gets funneled into a bottleneck where escape is impossible. If you thought humans invented ambush tactics, think again. Lions have been perfecting this for millions of years, long before humans figured out how to make toast. And then all hell breaks loose. The lead lioness gives the signal, usually a subtle shift in body language that tells the others, "Let's ruin someone's day." The decoy suddenly charges, sending the herd into a frenzy, and as expected, the prey makes the worst possible decision. They run straight toward the hidden assassins, who explode from cover like furry missiles. This is the moment when everything that can go wrong for the prey does go wrong. Zebras trip over each other, gazelles try to change direction but get body-checked by their own panicked friends, and wildebeests, well, they usually just make a lot of dramatic noises before realizing they were doomed from the start. Lions don't have endurance like cheetahs, but what they do have is a short, terrifying burst of speed. For about 20 to 30 meters, They can hit speeds of up to 50 miles per hour, which is faster than most cars in a school zone. The prey barely has time to react before they're within claw's reach. And here's where lions show why they are the apex predators of the savannah, because the takedown is pure brute force athleticism. Once a lion gets close enough, the kill is swift, but not always clean. Unlike leopards or cheetahs who aim for precision kills, lions are all about overwhelming power. They leap, latch onto their target's hindquarters, and yank them down like a professional wrestler going for a suplex. If the prey is large, say a fully grown zebra, the lions use teamwork to drag it to the ground. One goes for the neck, another grabs a leg, and within seconds, the struggle is over. The final blow usually comes in the form of a suffocating throat clamp, a gruesome but efficient way to ensure the prey stops kicking. What's fascinating is that every lioness in the pride knows her role instinctively. There's no pep talk, no discussion, no, "Okay girls, who's on throat duty today?" They just know what to do. It's an organized chaos, a perfectly synchronized destruction machine that has been fine-tuned over generations. And just like that, the hunt is over. But the story is just beginning. Now, while lions are master strategists, they aren't immune to spectacular hunting fails. Sometimes a zebra dodges at the last second, and a lioness goes face first into a mud puddle. Other times the prey is just too fast, and the entire pride ends up panting like exhausted marathon runners. One of the funniest moments in lion hunting is when wildebeests suddenly grow a spine and charge back. There have been cases where lions were so shocked by a counterattack that they straight up gave up mid-hunt. Imagine spending 30 minutes sneaking up on your meal only for it to turn around and say, "You want some of this?" Lions, despite their power, know when to cut their losses. If the hunt is successful, it's time to eat, but not without drama. The male lion, who has done absolutely nothing except look handsome, strolls in like a mafia boss demanding his cut. The lionesses, who have done all the work, are forced to let him eat first. Hierarchy matters. Once the males get their fill, the lionesses dig in, and finally the cubs, who usually end up getting scraps. If food is scarce, it's survival of the fittest, even among family. And that's the savage beauty of lion ambush tactics. It's deadly, strategic, and sometimes downright hilarious. It's proof that nature is both brutal and brilliant, where the strongest don't just survive. They thrive through teamwork, planning, and the occasional lucky break. Because in the end, whether you're a lion or a bank robber, the key to success is the same: a well-executed ambush. For centuries, we have been spoon-fed the idea that lion prides revolve around a big burly male, an untouchable golden-maned ruler who lords over his kingdom like an invincible god. If Disney had its way, we'd all believe lions spend their days majestically surveying their lands, while wise old baboons offer spiritual advice. But reality is much messier, far more dangerous, and often downright hilarious. Because behind every so-called lion king is a council of lionesses, a powerful, secretive, and cunning network of savannah politicians who run the real show. The males may come and go, fighting, roaring, and pretending they matter, but the lionesses, they decide everything. They control who lives, who dies, and who gets to pass on their bloodline. They are the real rulers of the pride, and when necessary, they won't hesitate to commit betrayal, sabotage, or full-scale regicide. Lionesses aren't just passive queens waiting for their king to return home from battle. They are the true backbone of the pride, the hunters, the protectors, and the keepers of tradition. Unlike males, who live in a constant state of paranoia about losing their throne, lionesses enjoy long-term power. They are born into a pride, raised by generations of sisters, and will often spend their entire lives within that same family unit. This means they have seniority. A dominant male may rule for 4 to 5 years if he's lucky. But the lionesses, they outlast him. They remember the previous kings. They witnessed how their mothers dealt with weak rulers. They know exactly when a king is worth keeping and when it's time to replace him. And if a male lion fails to meet their standards, whether through weak genetics, bad leadership, or sheer incompetence, the lionesses will start plotting against him faster than a medieval court full of backstabbing nobles. While males are constantly fighting for dominance, the lionesses are thinking long-term. Their primary concern is genetic superiority. They want their cubs to have the best possible father. Not just the strongest, but the smartest, the most resourceful, the one least likely to get himself killed in a dumb fight over territory. When a new coalition of males invades, the lionesses will resist at first, defending their cubs from the incoming hostile takeover. But deep down, they are also analyzing the new candidates. Are these males strong? Are they young and fit? Do they have a good track record? Or are they just a bunch of scrappy nomads destined to be dethroned within months? If the invading males prove their worth, the lionesses will switch sides. Yes, that's right, they betray their former king. One day they're fiercely protecting him, the next day they're letting the new rulers take over, accepting their fate and preparing for a new generation. It's a brutal system, but it ensures that only the strongest genes survive. A lioness's loyalty isn't to a male, it's to the future of the pride. Now, not all male lions are cut out for leadership. Some inherit power too early, some win through pure dumb luck, and some are just lazy. A weak king is a nightmare for a pride. He doesn't defend his land properly. He lets hyenas get too bold. He doesn't chase off rivals. Worse, he's bad at mating. If a lion isn't producing cubs fast enough, he's a liability. The lionesses are not running a charity, they need results. And when a lion fails, the lionesses start looking for outside options. Here's where things get really spicy. Sometimes a secret romance begins. A lioness, usually the boldest, most cunning member of the pride, will sneak off to meet a rogue male. This isn't just casual dating, it's an undercover political alliance. If she finds a promising young male outside the pride, she may actually bring him in, introducing him to the others and persuading them to accept him as their next king. And when the time is right, she'll help orchestrate a coup. This can take many forms. Sometimes, the lionesses intentionally lead their weak king into a vulnerable position, making it easy for rival males to attack him. Other times, they simply refuse to mate with him, ensuring his genetic line goes nowhere. And in the most extreme cases, they might drive him out themselves. There have been documented cases of lionesses ganging up on a failing male, physically attacking him and forcing him into exile. When that happens, he doesn't stand a chance. A male lion might be stronger than a single lioness, but against a team of angry mothers with sharp claws and zero patience, he's doomed. But the political games don't end with overthrowing kings. Lionesses also have rivalries among themselves. Not all lionesses get along. In fact, the older, more dominant females control breeding rights. This means younger females must wait their turn. If they try to mate too soon, they might face serious consequences. In extreme cases, older lionesses have been known to kill the cubs of younger mothers, ensuring their own bloodline remains dominant. And then there's the matter of inheritance. In most prides, leadership is passed down through the strongest, most experienced females. When an old matriarch dies, there can be internal power struggles, with younger lionesses fighting for dominance. Some will leave, forming new prides with sisters or cousins, while others will stay and try to forcefully climb the ranks. Even within the tightest sisterhood, betrayal is always a possibility. At the end of the day, the real rulers of the pride aren't the males, it's the lionesses. They are the political masterminds, the strategic planners, the power brokers of the savannah. The males may roar the loudest, but it's the females who decide who gets to rule and for how long. Males come and go, their reigns lasting just a handful of years, but the lionesses remain. They outlive kings, outthink rivals, and ensure that only the strongest bloodlines continue. They manipulate, they conspire, they overthrow, and they do it all in the name of survival. Because in the end, the pride isn't about the king, it's about the empire. And the lionesses? They are the true architects of its future. The African savannah is a land of constant war, betrayal, and bloody coups, where kings don't sit on thrones. They fight for them with their claws, teeth, and an army of equally vicious brothers. If you think lions spend their time majestically ruling over their prides, you've been misled by childhood cartoons. In reality, the biggest battles in the wild aren't between lions and their prey, they're between lions and other lions. Because in this world, it's not enough to be strong. You need to be stronger than the next guy who wants your kingdom. And when it comes to real power in the lion world, one male alone is never enough. That's why lions form coalitions, ruthless bands of male warriors, often made up of brothers or childhood allies, who work together to overthrow kings and reshape the landscape of the savannah. Sometimes these coalitions don't just take over a pride, they wipe out entire bloodlines, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. These are not just fights, these are wars. Before we dive into the greatest lion wars ever recorded, let's talk about how a lion coalition forms. Every male lion starts as an outcast. Kicked out of his birth pride like an unemployed teenager who refuses to move out, a young male must face the cruelest reality of lionhood. He is now nothing. No territory, no lionesses, no cubs, no respect. Just a hungry, scrappy ball of fur wandering in exile, dodging hyenas and living off scraps. But survival alone isn't enough. These exiled males find each other, forming alliances based on shared desperation and mutual bloodlust. Brothers, cousins, even unrelated wanderers with the same goal, they band together, building a brotherhood of destruction. These coalitions don't just hope to take over a pride someday, they train for it, honing their skills by ambushing prey, challenging weaker males, and bulking up like bodybuilders preparing for a championship fight. The bigger the coalition, the more dangerous it is. While a lone male has almost no chance of seizing power, a coalition of 3, 4, or even 5 males is a wrecking ball of destruction. And when they finally grow strong enough, they pick a target. And when they do, blood will spill. If there's one coalition that rewrote the rules of lion warfare, it's the Mapogo lions, a 6-male supergroup of killers that rampaged across the Sabi Sands region of South Africa, creating the most terrifying lion dynasty ever recorded. These weren't just your average power-hungry lions. They were full-blown warlords, led by a monstrous male named Mr. T. Yes, that was his real name. And yes, he was every bit as terrifying as the human Mr. T. This coalition did what no other lions had ever done before. They didn't just take over one pride, they took over everything. Within a few short years, the Mapogo coalition killed over 100 rival lions, wiping out entire bloodlines and taking over multiple prides at once, a feat never seen before in lion history. They didn't just chase away rival males, they hunted them down and executed them. They didn't just kill cubs from previous bloodlines, they killed them all. They weren't just dominant, they were the lion equivalent of an empire. But power like that comes at a cost. The Mapogo reign lasted longer than most, but no lion rules forever. Eventually, a younger, stronger coalition came for them, and the once unstoppable kings fell one by one. By the time it was over, the Mapogo dynasty was nothing but a legend, one of the bloodiest, most infamous stories in the history of lion warfare. What happens when a great empire crumbles? A new one rises from its ashes. As the Mapogo lions began to age, a new coalition emerged, the Majingalani males, a 4-strong band of young, powerful warriors who had spent years watching the Mapogo lions rule with an iron paw. They learned from them, studied their tactics, and when the time was right, they made their move. The Majingalane didn't just attack randomly. They stalked the Mapogo lions for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. When the legendary coalition had begun to weaken, then in one brutal night, they launched a surprise attack, ambushing a Mapogo male alone. This wasn't just a fight, this was a calculated assassination. The lone Mapogo lion never stood a chance. He was mauled, outnumbered, and eliminated. From there, the Majingalani took over, executing every remaining Mapogo male until their reign was nothing but a memory. They did what seemed impossible. They toppled the greatest lion coalition in history and became the new rulers of the savannah. The Mapogo and Majingalani wars weren't just isolated battles, they were a glimpse into how the lion world really works. Coalitions don't just fight for survival, they fight for legacy. Every battle, every takeover, every cub slaughtered and rival killed is part of an ongoing war for genetic dominance. Because in the end, no lion coalition rules forever. There is always a younger, stronger, hungrier group waiting in the shadows. The cycle is endless, brutal, and inevitable. And for every dominant male enjoying his reign today, there is a band of exiled warriors sharpening their claws, building their strength, and plotting the next great lion war. Because in the kingdom of lions, there are no peaceful transitions of power, only war. The life of a lion king is glorious, brutal, and tragically short. One day, he is ruling a vast empire, patrolling his territory with a confident swagger, surrounded by loyal lionesses and a litter of cubs that bear his mighty genes. The next day, he's getting kicked in the face by a younger, stronger coalition, limping away into the wilderness while his former queens pretend they don't know him. Because in the lion world, there is no retirement plan, no golden years, no peaceful transition of power. A lion doesn't get to step down gracefully, sip coconut water under a tree, and give wise advice to the next generation. He either rules or he runs. And when a king loses his throne, he's left with only 2 choices: die quickly or die slowly. But some lions, some don't accept exile. They don't crawl away quietly into the night to be forgotten. Some lions, stripped of their kingdom, robbed of their cubs, betrayed by fate itself, make one final furious stand against the inevitable. This is the story of those lions. When a ruling male is overthrown, he doesn't just lose a fight, he loses everything. His land, gone. His lionesses, immediately mating with his killers like he never existed. His cubs, slaughtered before he even limps past the nearest tree. The brutality of lion takeovers isn't just personal, it's designed by nature to be merciless. For a lone lion, exile is worse than death. He becomes a fugitive, roaming lands that don't belong to him, dodging patrols of new rulers who would kill him on sight. His once mighty mane, once a golden symbol of power, becomes matted and dull. His muscular frame, once capable of snapping wildebeests in half, shrinks as starvation sinks in. He is no longer a king, he is a ghost. And the worst part? He knows it. If there's one group of animals that celebrates a lion's downfall the hardest, it's hyenas. And why wouldn't they? These cackling scavengers have spent years suffering under the rule of powerful males who would chase them off kills, break their bones, and occasionally use them as chew toys. But now the tables have turned. A lone lion is no longer a feared ruler. He is a walking buffet. Hyenas, who once trembled at his roar, now follow him at a distance, laughing like debt collectors waiting for him to miss another payment. At night they test him, rushing in to nip at his tail, stealing scraps of food, harassing him just enough to remind him that he's no longer untouchable. If he fights back, they scatter, but only for a while. They have time. He doesn't. Because exile isn't just about survival, it's about wearing him down. A lion without a pride can't hunt as effectively. He wastes energy chasing prey that outruns him. He loses weight, he loses stamina, and eventually, the hyenas know exactly when to strike. And when they do, it's a slow, agonizing death. But not all exiled lions accept their fate. Some, instead of running into the shadows, make a different choice. They fight. They become rebels. Some of the most legendary male lions in history didn't rise to power by being born into dominance. They clawed their way back from absolute rock bottom. Take Notch, for example, a lion who, after being exiled, refused to die. Instead of vanishing into the wasteland, he teamed up with his sons, forming a coalition that would take back what was stolen from him. Against all odds, he returned to reclaim power, proving that sometimes the underdog wins. Or consider Scarface, one of the most famous lions ever recorded. After losing his kingdom, Scarface became a master strategist, using ambush tactics and guerrilla warfare to outmaneuver stronger, younger rivals. He may have looked half dead, but his mind, still sharp as ever, he lived to rule again, proving that sometimes brains beat brawn. The message: never count an exiled lion out. But what about those lions who don't get a second chance? What about those who know their time is up? Some exiled lions choose to go out with a fight. If death is inevitable, they make sure to drag someone down with them. There are stories of old battle-scarred lions marching straight into enemy territory, roaring for one final battle. They charge directly into the coalition that stole their throne, knowing full well they won't win, but they will be remembered. Some attack herds of buffalo head-on, not as a desperate attempt for food, but as a warrior's last act of defiance. If they're lucky, they bring down a buffalo. If they're unlucky, the buffalo brings them down instead. And then there are those who simply vanish. No one knows where they go. No body is ever found. They disappear into the wilderness, becoming ghosts of the savannah, their stories left unfinished. And that's the thing about exiled lions. They may lose everything, but they never truly die. Because their bloodline continues, sometimes through hidden cubs they fathered before exile. Sometimes through distant relatives who share their DNA, sometimes through the very lions who once chased them away, unknowingly carrying the same strength, the same instincts, the same fire that refused to go out. Every lion that rises, every coalition that conquers, every new king who claims a throne is living proof that exile is never the end. It's just another chapter in the eternal war for dominance. And somewhere, right now, in the shadows of the savannah, another exiled lion is licking his wounds, sharpening his claws, waiting for his chance. Because in the kingdom of lions, the last fight is never truly the last. In the vast golden plains of the African savannah, a lion may believe he is the ultimate ruler, the apex of the apex predators, the heavyweight champion of the animal kingdom. And to be fair, he does have the looks, the muscle, and the bone-crushing bite force to back it up. But even the king of beasts has a sworn enemy, an infuriating, cackling, bone-stealing, grudge-holding nemesis that refuses to accept second place. Enter the hyena army, nature's most effective guerrilla warfare specialists, infamous for their mob tactics, psychological warfare, and shameless audacity. If lions are the self-proclaimed rulers of the savannah, then hyenas are the rebels, the underdogs, and the chaos bringers that make sure the throne is never secure. They are smaller, scrappier, and hilariously relentless, proving that sometimes sheer numbers and sheer stubbornness can make even the strongest predator look like an overworked babysitter. If hyenas had a playbook for terrorizing lions, it would have 3 main chapters: stealing, ambushing, and psychological warfare. These are not mindless scavengers waiting for scraps. They are master strategists, operating like a dysfunctional yet highly efficient army. First and foremost, hyenas are thieves, and they are very, very good at it. A lioness can spend an entire afternoon setting up a kill, executing a flawless ambush, and finally taking down a wildebeest in a burst of incredible athleticism. And then, just as she's about to enjoy the rewards of her hard work, she hears it. The infamous hyena giggle. This is no ordinary laugh. This is the sound of incoming robbery. A single hyena is no problem for a lioness. She'll swat it away like a particularly annoying housefly. But a dozen hyenas? 20? That's a different story. Hyenas are the savannah's ultimate gangsters, and their entire strategy revolves around numbers and pure, unrelenting harassment. They swarm, they circle, they nip, they taunt like hecklers in a boxing match, waiting for the lioness to lose her patience. The moment she does, game over. She snarls, she fights back, but hyenas don't play fair. One distracts her from the front, another bites her tail, a third pulls at her ear, and before she knows it, her hard-earned meal is walking away in the jaws of her giggling enemies. And the worst part? They don't even look sorry.
But hyenas don't just steal, they actively hunt lions.
It sounds insane, but when the numbers are right, hyenas go full war mode. Their greatest weapon isn't their bite force, which, by the way, is one of the strongest in the animal kingdom. It's endurance. Lions may be strong, but they are lazy. They operate on a sprinter's budget. Short bursts of explosive power, followed by hours of napping and looking majestic. Hyenas, on the other hand, are distance runners, built for long pursuits. If they sense weakness in a lion, maybe an injured male, an old exile, or a cub that has wandered too far from safety, they activate chase mode. What happens next is the stuff of nightmares for any unlucky lion. A single hyena spots the target and lets out a call, a haunting, eerie whoop that says, "Hey, we found one! Everyone get over here!" Within minutes, the entire clan arrives. The lion, sensing trouble, starts running, but that's exactly what the hyenas want. Unlike lions who burn energy fast, hyenas are masters of endurance. They don't need to fight right away. They just need to keep the lion running. 10 minutes pass. Then 20. The lion's breathing becomes labored. His muscles, built for short bursts of power, not marathons, start to betray him. He tries to turn and fight, but the hyenas don't give him a chance. They attack in waves from every direction, wearing him down bit by bit. By the time he collapses, he's already lost. It is not a quick death, and that's what makes hyenas such terrifying opponents. They don't rely on a single killer bite. They overwhelm, they exhaust, and they consume. And when they finally win, well, let's just say not much is left behind. It's not just about food. It's not just about survival. Lions and hyenas despise each other on a deeply personal level. Their rivalry is an ancient, ongoing war, built on generations of grudges, stolen meals, and bad blood. Lions go out of their way to kill hyenas, even when they don't need to. If a lion finds a lone hyena, he will chase it down, maul it, and leave its body behind, uneaten. It's not about hunger, it's about revenge. Likewise, hyenas attack lion cubs whenever they get the chance, not just because cubs are easy targets, but because wiping out future kings is a solid long-term strategy. Some researchers believe this rivalry is one of the oldest in the animal kingdom. These two predators compete for the same resources, and neither is willing to give an inch. This isn't a case of one species being superior. It's a war between two equally matched forces, each trying to gain the upper hand. The battle lines are drawn. Lions have brute strength, but hyenas have endurance. Lions hunt in small elite groups, but hyenas have numbers and coordination. A lion will kill a hyena if given the chance, but a pack of hyenas can bring down even the strongest lion. It's a rivalry where both sides win and both sides lose constantly. There have been documented cases of full-scale battles between lion prides and hyena clans. Not just small scuffles, actual battlefield-style clashes where lions and hyenas face off like two rival street gangs. One such battle was recorded in the Masai Mara, where a pride of lions tried to settle near a massive hyena territory. At first, the lions tried to ignore the constant harassment. But the hyenas, they didn't let up. They kept stealing food, testing the lions, pushing their luck. Then, one night, the lions had enough. Led by a massive coalition of males, the lions launched a full-scale counterattack, storming the hyena dens in an act of pure savannah vengeance. The battle lasted hours. Hyenas called in reinforcements. Lions defended their ground, bodies were scattered, and the air was filled with the sounds of war. In the end, the lions won, but at a cost. Several lions died in the battle, proving that even when victorious, hyenas are not easily defeated. And so the war continues. As we speak, somewhere on the savannah, a lion is chasing a hyena out of its territory, while a hyena is laughing as it runs off with a stolen meal. Somewhere, a lion cub is learning to roar, while a hyena pup is learning to gang up on bigger enemies. Because in the African wild, rivalries don't fade, grudges don't disappear. The battle between lions and hyenas is an eternal conflict, one that has raged for millions of years and will continue long after we are gone. In the grand hierarchy of the Lion Kingdom, the rules are simple. You either rule or you are ruled. But what happens when a lion refuses to play by those rules? When he decides he's not interested in ruling a pride, raising cubs, or constantly defending territory against the next wave of power-hungry upstarts? What if he just wants to survive by any means necessary, living in the shadows, striking when least expected, and bending the laws of the savannah in his favor? That's when a lion becomes a mercenary. Not all young males form power-hungry coalitions with their brothers. Some go rogue. They turn their backs on the politics of lion society and become lone assassins, wandering across the plains with no allegiance, no home, and no mercy. They don't fight to take over prides, they don't defend cubs, and they sure as hell don't care about the whole kingdom nonsense. Instead, they steal, sabotage, and survive using pure cunning and brutality. These nomadic killers are unpredictable, deadly, and feared by both dominant males and lionesses alike. Because when a rogue mercenary arrives in an area, someone is about to lose something, be it food, cubs, or their own life. Every mercenary lion starts the same way, as an outcast. For most male lions, the path to dominance is a brutal marathon. Young males are forced out of their birth prides as soon as they hit puberty, because no ruling male wants his teenage stepsons hanging around his lionesses like uninvited house guests. So with zero hunting skills, zero experience, and an attitude problem, these exiles are shoved into the wilderness with no plan, no backup, and no real sense of how the world works. Most of them scramble to form coalitions, because alone they are as good as dead. They band together, build strength, and one day return as a lethal army to claim a pride of their own. That's the normal route. But not everyone follows the normal route. Some young males fail to form alliances, either because they're lone survivors of an already destroyed pride, or because they were simply too antisocial to make friends. These lone lions don't have the numbers to launch a takeover. They can't afford to fight for dominance, because the odds are never in their favor. They don't rule, they survive, and that means playing dirty. A rogue mercenary lion has no territory, no pride, and no backup. He is constantly on the move, like an outlaw drifting between hostile lands, never staying in one place long enough to be noticed. If he enters a dominant male's territory, he knows he has one option: stealth. Unlike a proud coalition leader who marks his land with roars and scent markings, the mercenary lion operates like a thief in the night. He doesn't advertise his presence. He keeps his mane small, since large manes attract attention. He moves under cover of darkness, and he only takes risks when absolutely necessary. His entire existence is based on opportunism. When he finds a carcass, he steals it. When he sees a lioness straying too far from the pride, he mates with her in secret, passing on his genes without the dominant male ever realizing. When he spots weak or injured rivals, he kills them, not for dominance, but because removing competitors means fewer threats. But his most dangerous habit: he kills cubs, not just those of rivals, but all cubs. Unlike pride males who only kill the offspring of previous kings, a rogue lion slaughters indiscriminately. This isn't about power, this is about ensuring no future competition survives. If no cubs grow up to challenge him, then he has more time to operate in the shadows. And because he never stays in one place long enough to be caught, he often gets away with murder. One of the most infuriating things a rogue mercenary does, at least from the perspective of dominant males, is sneaking into prides to mate with their lionesses. Normally, in a pride takeover, a coalition of males fights their way in, kills all existing cubs, and then mates with the females to produce their own offspring. The logic is simple: new kings, new genes. But rogue lions don't bother with the whole fight for dominance thing. Instead, they wait for moments of weakness. Maybe the dominant males are too busy patrolling the outskirts, dealing with rival threats. Maybe the lionesses have wandered too far while hunting. Maybe the territory is just too large to monitor every inch of it. That's when the mercenary lion strikes. He sneaks in like a villain in an espionage movie, finds a receptive female, and mates with her before slipping away into the night. The cubs she bears, not the dominant males, but the rogues. And because she gives birth within the pride, those cubs are raised under the protection of the very lions meant to stop him. By the time the pride males realize the trick, it's too late. The rogues' genes live on, and the dominant males have been outplayed without even realizing it. This is the lion equivalent of a corporate sabotage scheme, and it works alarmingly well. Of course, living as a rogue mercenary isn't sustainable forever. The lifestyle is brutal, always running, always hiding, always fighting starvation and exhaustion. It's a dangerous game where one mistake can mean death. Some nomads eventually die in ambushes, unable to escape the wrath of an enraged coalition. Some starve to death, unable to find enough food while dodging patrols. Others grow too bold, attempting to challenge full prides alone, only to be torn apart by multiple opponents.
And then there are those who go mad with desperation. Old, starving mercenaries who, knowing they have nothing left to lose, launch suicide attacks on prides in a last-ditch attempt to take what they couldn't before.
These are the most dangerous rogues of all, because they fight without fear, knowing their time is up. But even in death, some mercenaries still win. Their genes, conceived in stolen moments, live on inside the very prides they once haunted. And their legend? It remains, whispered among lions like a ghost story, a cautionary tale about the shadows that lurk just outside the pride's borders. Because in the world of lions, not every warrior fights for a throne. Some fight only for survival. As the sun dips below the horizon and the African sky ignites in hues of orange and crimson, the landscape undergoes a transformation. The once vibrant savannah, bustling with life, begins to hush. Gazelles stop their endless grazing, wildebeests glance nervously at the darkening horizon, and zebras, who normally spend their days in a chaotic symphony of tail flicking and nervous side eyes, suddenly stand very still, ears twitching, hearts pounding. Because they know, they all know, the moment that great flaming ball of light disappears, the kings wake up. For most of the day, lions embody the very definition of lazy royalty. They spend up to 20 hours sleeping, sprawled out in whatever ridiculous, unmajestic pose their body flops into. Their daytime schedule includes light stretching, yawning, occasionally lifting a paw to swat a fly, and, if they're feeling particularly ambitious, stealing a freshly killed meal from a hyena who did all the work. But the second the sun disappears, a switch flips. Those same lions who were snoring like overgrown house cats just moments ago suddenly become the most dangerous hunters in Africa. It's as if someone hit a murder mode button. Their eyes, perfectly adapted for low-light vision, sharpen. Their muscles, rested and recharged after a full day of lazy luxury, twitch with anticipation. Their instincts, honed over millions of years, remind them that the darkness is their ally and everything else is prey. And then, the carnage begins. Unlike cheetahs, who rely on blinding speed, or leopards, who specialize in stealthy solo assassinations, lions have a hunting style that can best be described as organized crime in fur coats. They operate in teams, use tactics that seem straight out of a military playbook, and capitalize on darkness to level the playing field against the savannah's fastest prey. See, during the day, hunting is a losing game for lions. Most of their prey, zebras, wildebeests, impalas, have exceptional eyesight. The moment they see a lion moving in their direction, the sirens go off, and before you know it, the whole savannah is on high alert, making hunting nearly impossible. But at night, the tables turn. A lion's eyes are 6 times more sensitive to light than a human's, meaning they can see perfectly in near total darkness. Meanwhile, their prey, not so much. Zebras and antelopes are basically running on hope and prayers vision at night, relying mostly on their hearing to detect danger. This gives lions an unfair but very effective advantage. Under the cover of darkness, they can get dangerously close before their prey even realizes what's happening. By the time the poor wildebeest figures out it's in trouble, it's already one bite away from the afterlife. Hunting in the daytime requires patience, strategy, and a great deal of running, which lions, quite frankly, hate. Lions are not marathon runners. They are ambush sprinters, and if a chase lasts more than a few seconds, they're already debating whether the meal is worth the effort. That's why at night they set traps. The lionesses, the true hunting masterminds, spread out in coordinated attack positions, slinking through the tall grass like living shadows. Each one takes a calculated position based on the wind direction, terrain, and most importantly, the sheer idiocy of their prey. A good example? Zebras. Zebras have one solid strategy for survival. If something scary appears, run in the opposite direction.
Sounds logical, right?
Except lions know this, and they position themselves in a way that forces the zebras to run straight into a waiting ambush. The first lioness will charge head-on, sending the panicked herd stampeding in the wrong direction, right into the jaws of the second wave of lionesses. Before they even realize what's happening, one unlucky zebra is already halfway to the afterlife. And the best part? The lions never break a sweat. Now, lions aren't the only ones who thrive in the shadows. There's another group that prefers working at night: poachers. Poachers have been sneaking into wildlife reserves for decades, hoping to kill rhinos for their horns, elephants for their tusks, and even lions themselves for the illegal trade in lion bones. They bring their rifles, their spotlights, their cheap cigarettes, and their misplaced confidence, thinking that a few flashlights and some camouflage will keep them safe. What they don't realize, they are hunting in lion prime time. There have been multiple documented cases of lions turning the tables on poachers, ambushing them the same way they ambush zebras. Picture this. A group of men sneaks into a protected area under cover of darkness, rifles in hand, whispering as they approach what they think is an easy target. But what they don't realize is that a pride of hungry lions has been watching them the entire time. And unlike zebras, these poachers can't run 40 miles per hour. The result? A well-deserved karma-infused ending. Let's just say some poachers never make it back to their camps. Once the hunt is over, it's time for the lion version of a family dinner, which, unsurprisingly, is an absolute disaster. If you thought human siblings fight over food, you've clearly never seen a group of lions trying to divide a freshly killed wildebeest. First, the dominant males, who did 0% of the work, waltz in like entitled CEOs and take the best portions for themselves. The lionesses, who actually did all the hunting, have to wait their turn like underpaid employees at a bad corporate holiday party. Then, once the males have eaten enough to nearly pass out, the lionesses finally dig in, but not before getting into a few dramatic squabbles over who gets what piece. And the cubs. They get whatever scraps are left, usually after getting smacked in the face for trying to sneak a bite too early. It's a chaotic, violent mess, but for lions this is normal. Once the feeding frenzy is over, the lions return to their daytime routine, flopping over in the dirt, looking majestically lazy and preparing for another night of terror. Because in the end, the night belongs to them. The dark is their ally, the hunt is their nature, and everything else, whether it's a zebra, a wildebeest, or an unlucky poacher, is just another casualty of the Nightfall carnage. There is no graceful retirement for a lion. There are no farewell speeches, no golden pensions, and certainly no lazy afternoons spent reminiscing about past glories while sipping on coconut water. Instead, an aging Lion King spends his final days clinging to the last shreds of his once mighty reign, dodging challenges, fighting off starvation, and facing the harsh reality that time, like a relentless hyena pack, always wins. The savannah is a place where youth is power and strength is currency, and an old male lion, once a terrifying, dominant warlord, slowly finds himself slipping into irrelevance. His roar, once a booming declaration of absolute authority, starts losing its edge, cracking at the end like an old record. His mane, which once made him look like the very embodiment of power, begins to thin out, patchy and worn, as if even his own fur is giving up on him. His body, once an unbreakable war machine, now betrays him. Stiff joints, slowing reflexes, and wounds that take longer to heal. But here's the thing, not every old lion goes down without a fight. Some lions disappear into exile, limping into the shadows to await the inevitable, but others? Others choose to go out in a blaze of carnage, launching one final war against fate itself. Every lion's downfall begins with a whisper on the wind, a rumor that spreads across the savannah like an approaching storm. The younger males, nomads who have been watching, waiting, training, begin to notice the signs. The once invincible king is moving slower, his patrols are less frequent, and his grip on power is starting to loosen. And in the lion world, weakness is an invitation to war. The first real crack in his armor comes when he loses a fight he should have won. Maybe it's a territorial skirmish against a rival pride, where he takes longer than usual to chase off a challenger. Maybe it's a hunt, where he fails to keep up with the lionesses, trailing behind while younger males watch from a distance, taking notes. Maybe it's something as simple as losing a meal to a group of bold hyenas, an event that would have been unthinkable in his prime. And once the challengers know that his time is up, the real war begins. The coup never happens immediately. The young males, usually a coalition of 2, 3, or even 5 brothers, spend weeks or months lurking at the edges of the old king's territory, testing the waters. They might roar at night, sending their challenges into the wind, waiting to see if the king still has the strength to respond. At first, the old lion answers back, roaring just as loud, a declaration that he is still here, still powerful, still king. But each night his voice gets weaker, and one night he stops responding altogether. That's when the young males know it's time to take the throne. The attack itself is never a fair fight. It's an onslaught, a merciless display of savannah politics, where the king, who once fought with ease, now finds himself outnumbered, overwhelmed, and betrayed by his own failing body. And here's where the real division begins. Some kings accept their fate, beaten down, too exhausted to resist. They slink away, disappearing into the wilderness, where they either starve, get picked off by hyenas, or simply vanish like forgotten ghosts. But others choose war. Some lions, when faced with the inevitable, decide that if they're going down, they're taking someone with them. These are the lions who refuse to accept exile, who would rather die in battle than fade into obscurity. One of the most legendary cases was Scarface, a lion who, despite growing frail and battered, refused to let his enemies have the satisfaction of watching him beg for mercy. When the younger males finally came for him, he didn't run. He charged. His attack was reckless, a desperate, bloody frenzy that took his enemies by surprise. He bit, clawed, and fought like a lion half his age, delivering wounds so severe that one of the young challengers later died from injuries sustained in the battle. In the end, Scarface didn't survive the night, but he went out like a warrior, making sure that the next generation knew that he didn't just lose, he made them earn every inch of the throne. Another infamous last stand belonged to Notch, a lion who defied the rules of the Lion Kingdom itself. After losing his throne, he didn't go into exile alone. He brought his sons with him. Together they formed an exiled army, moving like a pack of mercenaries, launching guerrilla-style attacks on prides, stealing kills, and ambushing unsuspecting rivals. For years, Notch was a phantom king, a warlord without a kingdom, until eventually his age caught up with him. His sons took over, but Notch refused to retire gracefully. His final battle was a chaotic bloodbath, where he stood alone against a coalition of younger males, fighting until his body couldn't move anymore. His legend, it lived on. So why do old lions fight back instead of simply walking away? Because in the lion world, legacy matters. A lion doesn't have wealth, doesn't have possessions, doesn't have a written history. The only thing he leaves behind is his bloodline, his roar, and the memory of his battles. To die without a fight is to be forgotten. That's why, when the final battle arrives, some lions don't just accept their fate, they create it. They sure to choose the battlefield, they choose their moment, and they ensure that even in death, they remain part of the savannah's endless war. Because in the kingdom of lions, there is no such thing as a peaceful ending. There is only the next challenger, the next fight, and the next war. And if a lion must die, then he will make sure that his roar echoes long after he's gone. The African savannah is not a peaceful place. It may look calm in documentaries, endless golden grasslands stretching beneath the setting sun, a light breeze ruffling the acacia trees, elephants meandering lazily toward a watering hole. But beneath this illusion of tranquility, there exists a war that never ends, a conflict written in claw marks, blood, and bone. The lions of Africa are locked in an endless cycle of violence, a revolving door of power that never stops turning. They rise as cubs, fight as warriors, rule as kings, and fall as exiles. And then, the next generation takes over. It's a brutal, merciless system. And yet, it is also the reason lions have survived for millions of years. But what makes this cycle so unbreakable? Why can no lion, no matter how powerful, ever hold on to the throne forever? Because the savannah does not allow peace. Every king who stands today is simply a target in waiting. And every cub who suckles at its mother's belly is a future challenger sharpening its teeth. This is the eternal battlefield of the lion, where war is not just inevitable, it is the very foundation of their existence. It's easy to assume that once a lion king is overthrown, his lineage disappears, erased from history by the young conquerors who now rule the land. But lions are notoriously difficult to erase. For every dominant male that falls, there is a hidden survivor, a brother, a son, a distant cousin, who escapes into the wilderness, waiting for his chance to reclaim what was stolen. Sometimes these survivors vanish for years, growing stronger in exile, forming new coalitions, and biding their time like vengeful warriors in an action movie. They roam as nomads, learning how to hunt, fight, and survive without a pride to back them up. They watch from the shadows as their father's killers grow fat and lazy, their once powerful muscles turning to soft, complacent comfort. And then, one day they return. History has seen many such comebacks. Cubs who once fled from slaughter returning as fully grown warlords, storming back into the lands they were forced to abandon. These are not just random takeovers. These are vengeance-fueled wars. Personal battles where the son fights to reclaim his father's throne. Some succeed, wiping out the old rulers and re-establishing their bloodline. Others fail, dying in the attempt. But either way, the cycle continues because while one revenge story ends, another begins. Every great lion coalition eventually falls, but some leave behind legacies so powerful that their influence lasts for generations. Take, for example, the legendary Mapogo coalition, a group of 6 male lions who did not just take over a single pride. They took over multiple territories, leaving behind a path of destruction that made hyenas nervous for the first time in history. They were so dominant that for a period of time it seemed like they had broken the cycle, that they were too strong, too ruthless, too untouchable to ever fall. And yet fall they did. No matter how powerful a coalition is, age is the great equalizer. The Mapogo lions began to weaken, their numbers dwindling, their dominance slipping through their pores like sand. And when younger males rose up to challenge them, they could no longer hold on to their empire. One by one they fell, until the great dynasty was nothing more than a story told in whispers. But their genes, their offspring lived on, scattered across the land. And among those cubs, some would rise to power, carrying on the warrior spirit of their fathers, proving that while kings die, bloodlines do not. A lion's greatest enemy is not always another lion. It is time itself. Lions have one of the shortest reigns of any apex predator. A dominant male usually rules for only 3 to 5 years, and if he's incredibly lucky, maybe 7 years at most. Compare that to a wolf, which can control a pack for a decade or longer, or even an elephant, whose leadership can span decades, and it becomes painfully clear, lion rule is temporary at best. Why? Because lion prides are not ruled by one king, but by time, genetics, and constant warfare. A male's entire purpose is to spread his genes as quickly as possible before he is inevitably replaced. The moment he begins to weaken, the lionesses who run the real show behind the scenes sense it. They begin to lose faith in him. They start looking toward the borders, listening for the distant roars of younger, stronger males who are waiting for their chance. And once those younger males make their move, it's already too late. Some kings fight to the bitter end. Some try to escape into exile, only to find that the wilderness is even crueler than their challengers. Some simply disappear, their bones left to be swallowed by the grasslands, their existence reduced to nothing but a faint, forgotten scent on the wind. But their replacements, they too will fall one day, because no lion reigns forever. Perhaps the most brutal truth of the lion's eternal war is this: even the cubs who play together today will one day become enemies. Right now, somewhere on the savannah, a litter of young male cubs is tumbling over each other, biting ears, wrestling, and roaring in high-pitched, adorable attempts to sound fierce. They seem like brothers, friends, inseparable bonds of fur and innocence. But in a few years, they will be exiled, kicked out of their mother's pride to fend for themselves. If they survive, they will form a coalition or fight each other to the death over who gets to lead it. And when they grow strong enough, they will do what all lions must do: march into another lion's territory and take what they believe is theirs. Some will succeed, some will fail, some will die in battles they were never meant to win. But all of them, whether they realize it or not, are part of the same war that has been raging for millions of years. The war that will never end. In the world of lions, there is no such thing as a happy ending. There is no lion that retires in peace, no king who rules forever, no dynasty that escapes its fate. The battlefield is eternal because the rules of survival are simple. There is no room for the weak, and power is never gifted. It is taken, fought for, and bled over. For every lion who rises, there is another waiting to strike him down. For every coalition that conquers, there is another forming in the shadows. For every king that roars his dominance into the night, there is a younger, hungrier warrior listening, sharpening his claws, preparing for the day when he will be strong enough to take the throne. And so the war continues. It has always continued, and it always will. If you survive this lion war zone without getting emotionally scarred, congratulations, you're officially tougher than a wildebeest. But don't stop here. The savannah never sleeps. and neither do our next-level wildlife documentaries. Subscribe to Predator Planet before a rogue lion sneaks into your camp. Watch our next documentary, because the wild never runs out of chaos. Go on, click it. Even lions respect commitment.